Yeah, that's a particularly interesting issue. And like, some schools that we work with, one of them in particular, they have a great policy. They work with higher functioning individuals with mental health diagnoses. And if they're high functioning enough and they know that they have street crossing skills and what have you, they will actually get the person a bus pass. If they say, screw this, I'm out of here, they don't drag them back into school. Huh. Now, if it's somebody that's lower functioning, doesn't have good street crossing skills, could easily get killed.
Or suicidal.
Or suicidal, and that's a bit different. I did want to touch on one thing that we talked about, and people do differ on this. When it was mentioned that there should be no restraint for property destruction, I do take a little bit of issue with that. In that, well, it first of all depends on the manner of restraint that you're using, but I understand about proselytizing the child's environment and making things as reasonably as you can that they cannot destroy or harm themselves with. Nonetheless, I'm in plenty of classrooms where there are a variety of things to destroy, and you could inadvertently, even if you're not trying to, injure yourself in the course of doing so. As an example, and that's where I guess this is where the judgment comes in, and this is where people have difficulty. The whole notion of imminent danger is very subjective. And if I believe that an individual is smashing things that shatter into pieces and can go flying, I'm going to stop them. It doesn't mean I'm going to restrain them in a prone restraint. More than likely, I'll just escort them out of the classroom. Now, that is a form of restraint, and it does involve stopping them for property destruction. But it's property destruction that is likely to lead to injury. We're not talking about breaking your pencil because you're mad about taking a math test. And I believe that a lot of the bristling that people do when they hear about restraint because of property destruction, it is insignificant property destruction and it is not dangerous. Or, as Joe was saying, it's just flat out noncompliance. I mean, I know teachers that want the kid dragged out of the classroom because he put his head down. For some of the kids I work with, it's a goal for them to put their head down. Fantastic. You put your head down and you went to sleep.
That's right. He didn't strike anybody.
So, I understand that, and I agree that, we don't want to even be physically escorting individuals out because they tear up their math quiz. That's just absurd.
Right.
But when they pull the fire extinguisher off the wall and whip it across the classroom, even if they didn't hit anybody, that's a little bit different issue. It's property destruction that has, it is consequential. I'll put it that way. It's consequential. Now, I don't think most people would disagree that you need to stop that. But I think one of the problems is, like I said, this whole concept of imminent danger. Who says what's imminent? Who says what's dangerous? For example, in our system, we have some guidelines of continuous aggression, continuous self-injury, continuous what we call high-magnitude disruption. High-magnitude disruption, for example, covers things that include severe property destruction, include things like inciting the classroom into a riot by taunting people and getting the entire classroom going. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, but you shouldn't restrain people for that. And I'm saying, well, we wouldn't want to immobilize somebody like that because it's going to continue to disrupt the classroom. At some point, though, I do think that people need to be escorted out of the classroom when it is completely disrupting the classroom, because then it's impinging upon the rights of the other children for their education. And most teachers, wouldn't disagree. And I even know a lot of parents that wouldn't disagree. I mean, but again, we're not talking about holding someone down on the floor because they were yelling and screaming. It would be counterintuitive. You wouldn't want to do that. But there may be some times when they need to be escorted out of the classroom. And I'd hate to see people lose the ability to be able to remove people from the classroom, even though it wasn't technically dangerous. And true, if they had a good handle on things, would those kinds of things be happening a lot? I would say probably not. But they do come up. So, it's something I think people need to continue to discuss regarding extremely disruptive behavior that is not dangerous, because not all the behaviors that children engage in are dangerous, but they're consequential and they are disruptive and they can affect their placement. So I just think that there sometimes needs to be some consideration to those sorts of issues.
Yeah, I respectfully disagree with that for the simple fact I think the imminent danger that if it's not destruction of property, if they were destroying property that was going to hurt somebody, it automatically falls under the other category. If they're destroying property that's not imminent danger, you don't have the authorization to use restraint. So I kind of like the way that the legislation is currently written.
Well, there's certainly, with an administrative background, there's constantly the pressures of finances, and to consistently have property destroyed is really creating a burden on the school itself and the other students. Do I have to remove a microscope from the room because a student keeps picking them up and smashing them?
Then they shouldn't be out in the room. Again, it goes back to the ecological environment and the classroom and the students that you're teaching.
I agree, but and something else I want to just say is that I've noticed many times with students with behavior issues that many times they'll bring it in from somewhere else, be it a home environment, be it some sort of clinical need. But you will have students that will come into the classroom with issues that you have no concept of what was going on, and will manifest itself in behavior that could be sometimes quite destructive.
It's very common, and that's not just in special education. That's in gen ed. That's in everything. It's life space crisis intervention would go into that. It's called red flag carrying or whatever was the terminology there. Is based on that happens a lot. You have a bad day at home. You come into school. You carry that persona with you. That issue. If a kid was being bullied on the school bus, he comes in. That bully may not even be in the classroom, but those behaviors are still going to surface there.
Right.
So that served as the antecedent.
And if the student then walks and starts destroying every microscope in the biology room, the teacher shouldn't step forward to stop him?
Not saying just not step forward and stop them, but the issue is restraint again. So in other words is...
Put that down, Joe.
Could you block
Bam! Put that down, Joe.
There's 1,000 alternatives here to go in through that. Now, if you're throwing it...
Bam! $2,000. Bam! $2,000. I mean, don't we owe the public at a certain point?
I think you're creating a scenario that there's 100 different ways around. I think I can place myself between the microscopes and the thing, and if you attack me, now it would be justification for restraint. So you understand what I'm saying? You could play this scenario 5 million different ways. I think you're going to the ludicrous side of the scenario analogies.
Joe, it happens. I've seen it happen. And you're right. It is the extreme, but we're dealing more and more with the extremes today in schools, aren't we?
I think proper management techniques, and also what you're talking is the restrictive environment and the placement itself. Because remember, that's a pyramid also is the least restrictive environment the gen ed setting? Is it maybe a self-contained classroom? Is it at a point where the schools can't handle them, that it is a special day school? And does it reach a point where both the family and the schools can't handle them, and hence it's a residential setting?
Right.
Least restrictive environment will differ depending upon each individual. And if you're having consistently at that thing, then I'm saying he's probably not in the right environment. You didn't place him right. And emphasis goes back on the schools again.
Right. But people change, and placements sometimes are slow to change.
And then you should change placements with behavior. That's the whole goal. When I've worked with residential special day is if a person was able to go to special day, their goal was to get them back down there. And if you can get them into gen ed, get them back into the public schools. But if behaviors become so excessive, then you have to get them out of the public schools because the staff is not trained regarding those techniques.
Right.